Welcome back. Good morning. This is Justin Core again on Real Estate Playbook. Appreciate you joining us. James Clear in Atomic Habits said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Let me say that again. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And we're going to talk about that today because I want to show you how in practice you can build some form of systems. We're going to be talking in our upcoming office meeting and doing a deep dive into the process of actually taking a listing, getting it to market, managing it well, and setting yourself up for success. Now, some people say, well, yeah, there's some obvious things you do. You got to schedule pictures. Yes. You've got to make sure the house is ready for that day. You've got to get your lockbox scheduled. You got to get the details so you can put it in MLS. And these are all true things. My question to you is, how do you ensure that you do it consistently time and time again? Over time, how do you have a repeatable process that not only does the job, but gets better over time? That's the kind of system we're talking about. Now, let me step back for a minute because we're moving into a world where the large language models and AI-based agents are going to have, and they already do, self-improving abilities, right? It'll be innate in their nature to be better at getting better because nothing is the same all the time. But as soon as I have an experience of an issue, I can make sure that that issue doesn't show its face again because I can build that into my process. And so we want to start thinking like this. If you've never thought this way, I want to get you in the mindset of doing this. And I want to just show you in practice how we've done this for part of our listing process. This is not the entire listing process. This is merely a snapshot of a part of the listing process. Now, after this, you might say, well, I want a copy of that. And happy to share it. Reach out. But without understanding the nuts and bolts as to why we do it, it's irrelevant. It won't make sense for everyone if you don't have a next best step of what happens when working with this. So I'm going to dive in. So I've been working with my listing coordinator, Lori, for about 5 years. And so we've got a very integrated kind of workflow. I know what she does. She knows what I do. We know expectations. An offer comes in. We know kind of workflow of what should happen to it, who does what, so to speak. Now, we both have the ability to jump in and do the other thing. But for a succinctness, we've got to make sure that we are in line on who does what, so we can really stay in our lanes and not step on each other's toes. So one of the things I saw was Lori having a very manual listing intake process, which is not a bad thing. She was great at it. And to some extent, we've got to remember that time of doing the listing intake is also rapport building and getting to know the seller. Sitting at their table and ask them questions and getting to understand their house is a really good thing, right? But it also is time consuming, and all sellers aren't built the same. All of them don't want to sit and do that. Some of them would, whether they got busy lives or on the road, whatever it is. We had to make sure we had a succinct option that could be almost as good as Lori being there in person. And so hence the development of our type form. In this type form, you'll see, and there's other ways you could put this together. It doesn't have to be type form, not a promotion for type form, but it does a very good job at being able to build a visual process. So I'm going to jump in and share screen. All right. So I am showing you a snapshot of our workflow for listing intakes. You can see it. This is a bird's eye view. Hope you can see this. I'm going to dive in and get more specific here in a minute. But on the face, when this goes out to someone, it looks like this. It all starts here. Boom. Now, for them, they can work through this in 8 to 10 minutes. If we were to do this in person, it's an hour and a half, hour and a half appointment, right? That was the experience because nothing happens faster in person. So if I jump into the workflow, what you're going to see is the thought pattern that any of you would have if you were to try and detail out what your process actually is, the things you need to have answers to. But what you got to understand is this was not built in one sitting. This has been built over many years of repetition of having an issue and then reflecting and saying, how could we have prevented that issue and putting it into our intake? Because what I want to make sure we do is have an intake process that gives us 99.9% of the information we're going to need and gives the seller an outlet to tell us the things they want us to know about the house so that when we're writing the description, when we're putting our marketing pieces together, we can make sure we're encapsulating their goals and desires as well. Sometimes a seller might make a have a big deal about a small point, and to them that's very important. It's not always important to the consumer, but it may be very important to them. We at least want to give them an outlet to make sure we've got that information handy and things we've heard. So I'm going to go through this in some small chunks. So property address, obviously, we need to be related to that. Contact information, bird contact. How do you want to be communicated with throughout this process? Now, that's not like the end all be all. Like, we're going to be in communication. We're going to talk on the phone, even if you prefer to be texted. Is there anyone else that should be, included? So, okay, here's our other contacts. Is the property in an ownership or in or a trust or something of the sort? If it is held in that, here we go. What is the name of the trust? Who are the executors? Are you a U.S. citizen? So we're doing a lot of the intake stuff that'll be mission critical for our title team and for our team to make sure we draw our contracts correctly. So we're actually doing this like really early in the process. Like, you want to get started, this is a really good place to start. Now, let's take some other details. Now, somebody would say, well, you know how many bathrooms there are, you've been in the house. Okay, got it. I want to go on record and make sure that we've got the best information from the seller so I can put forward a really good draft of our marketing piece. I want to make sure I'm not missing something. And so it's very important for us to make sure we're confirming the things that we believe we know to be true. Is there a garage attached to the main house? Why would we ask some of these questions? Because things have come up, right? How many bedrooms are in the secondary structure? How many bathrooms are in the additional structure, right? So this is if there's an additional dwelling on property. Now we're jumping into some other things. What is your current loan amount? Help us understand some of these details of the actual finance. I want to put together a net sheet that is legitimate to what you're going to be walking away with if we sell at a particular price. Now, we've got all kinds of little, you'll see this is where we start to branch out and things get a little wild. See if I can just see here. Is there a tenant and lease? If there is, what do I need to do? I need to get copies of those. Current copy of the lease. Please share specific. If it's not, we're branching down and we're skipping that section. We're going to utilities. We're trying to get uploading reports that would detail. Again, that is for. Sorry, I'm confusing myself with the workflow. I promise it works. Have renovations started or been completed? Are there any improvements and conditions being done? Please describe how you've used this property. List improvements still needed. Do you still intend to sell with tenants in place or have the tenants vacate? Right. So we're trying to account for all of the possible scenarios. And the primary question is, how do you classify the property? So what happens here? If they say it's a primary residence, we go to one set of questions. The first one's how long, the next question's how long have you lived in the property? How do you classify the property? If they say it's an investment or a long-term rental, boom, we jump to tenancy and lease. If we go to Airbnb investment, we're asking a whole separate set of questions, right? How do you classify this property? Fix and flip. Have renovations been started, completed? How do you classify it's other? How do you classify it, right? And so we're going to a point of starting to take them down a path so that we can collect information and simplify this, because everyone doesn't need to answer all of these questions, obviously. Jump out here a little further. Is the property on septic? Is there a termite bond on the property, right? Would be the next set of questions. Because if it's not, if it was, when is the last time the septic was pumped? If there's not, move on, right? And so we have this thought pattern here, because I know if we're hosting an open house and I start to get a list of questions from a very serious buyer, I do not want to be stuck waiting on the seller to get back with me. And I feel like a little foolish at times if I have to ask them every little thing. Who's done that, right? Where you're just like, let me ask this, let me ask this. Instead, what I'm going to have at the end of this is a list of everything that I've taken on this property. I can have it with me at all times, or very easily accessible in my Google Drive. We've got another branch here. So is there an alarm system? If there's not, what do? We skip that part. If there is, what alarm system? What is the monthly cost? Because sellers are going to ask that. Do you let us put a for sale sign in the yard showing an access? Will you permit electronic lockbox at your house? Like, let's get it on record. One of the things I've learned is having it on record is great for pushback in the future. Now, we're not litigious. We don't want to be, but we do want to protect ourselves. And protecting ourselves is having the sellers actually dictate the information that you're going to use for your marketing. We can verify, but we need to have them sign off in some way, shape, or form. So it's a really good start to that process. Is it a condominium or a single family home or HOA, condominium association, HOA, or optional HOA, right? Where'd optional HOA come from? Well, we had an issue where there was an optional HOA. The optional HOA had lien rights, even though it was optional. And that threw us for a curveball because there was actually a fee due, an estoppel fee due at closing. And so all of this is one of the things that I think many of us, when we're managing a listing process, we could easily skip 90% of these questions and still do a pretty good job on the listing. But what I want to do is make sure that we're not letting down our quality of intake even when we get really busy. This doesn't take me any more time to have this put together, right? I got essentially 100 questions in here. If somebody takes it straight through, chances are they're answering 50 to 60 questions because so many of them are ruled out through the process. It doesn't take them long to do it. And it is a process that we get behind and we can continue to lean into and improve. So I want to encourage you to think about, okay, that is the before we ever even have pictures made moment, right? That is the moment before, right after we've got a listing agreement and before we're even starting to put together our marketing data. So we're going to have all the things we need. What is your process? What is your repeatable process on that part? What is your repeatable process for a buyer intake? What is your repeatable process for the next set when you go live? Like, who manages that process? Is it you? If it's you, what are the exact steps that you take every time that you've seen work and create a repeatable, referable experience? I believe, without question, most of us don't have a lead issue. We have a process issue because our process is not creating a referable, repeatable experience. And therefore, you get a mixed experience depending on the customer. A lot of us would push back on that and we would say something to the effect of, well, every house is different. The people are different. And I don't disagree with that. That is 100% true. But if the process is 90% consistent every time, regardless of personality, regardless of condition of the house, what are we going to be able to do? Are we going to be able to better predict outcomes or less likely predict outcomes? Once we commit to the understanding that I can't guarantee any outcome for you, Mr. Seller. What I can do is guarantee a process that is highly likely to produce the desired outcome. Your whole business changes. And you're going to be focused on taking care of the 1-2 customers that you have and creating a referable experience that they desire to send more people your way. And that's the business I want for you. I want a business that is growing in and of itself because of the output, because of the experience, because of the process. So think deeply about where you lack process. Start with one, and let's figure out how to map it out in a way. Now, this can also happen in like your CRM, like our Follow Boss. We've got a detailed list of different tasks that are required. The closing process, a whole nother set of factors. Now, if that is unstable for you, just hire that part out. Please hire a transaction coordinator that can do that. They've already built the process. You need to be okay with the process that they do because everyone's is not going to be the same. But focus your attention on the things that are going to yield the most fruit and create the most referable experiences. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.